Hey, you're not going to believe the episode that I just recorded with my friend here, Bryan Welton. Amazing story. This gentleman here founded Namify, which is the largest name tag company in the world, and help me with more.
All types, promotional products, marketing.
Yeah. Anyway, built an empire really, and it is now giving back in some really big ways, both within the walls of his own home, which is most important, as well as helping young entrepreneurs and people around the world do some pretty incredible things. So tune in to this episode. You're going to love it, and please share it as well. Just great wealth of knowledge from this incredible person. So thanks again, man. Appreciate it. So the big question is this: how do those of us with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and welcome to the Think Bigger Mastermind. Hey, welcome back to the Think Bigger Mastermind, here with a friend of mine, Bryan Welton, owner of and founder of Namify. And Bryan, appreciate you coming in today. I know we've known each other for years and years, and had some fun conversations, getting to know each other. And Bryan's done some really cool things. So tell us a little bit about Namify, which is the largest name tag manufacturer in the U.S., in the world, potentially, right? Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey in creating such a cool company.
Sure. So Namify was founded originally in 2001. It actually started with just the concept or idea of, the internet boom had just crashed and burned, I guess. And then 2001 happened, 9/11 happened. The market was a little bit unstable, but we had just jumped into the engraving world. And part of the reason that we had jumped in is to be able to add a little bit of technology to some old manufacturing processes. So when we started Namify, the very beginning, in its infancy, it was basically just started to do a little bit of engraving, doing some online engraving and online printing. That's how it started in its infancy. Soon after that,
Real quick, what gave you the idea that there was a need in the marketplace for this? I mean, how did it start?
I think you found with the way that, so my experience or my background at the time or hobby was to do search engine optimization.
Okay.
And so that
totally different than manufacturing.
And that was big back then.
Yeah.
And so I decided to take the skill set, and I could take these smaller businesses and be able to add a web component to them, take them online for the first time, have them experience a broader audience to go outside of their local business. And so through my father-in-law and the relationship with my father-in-law, he and I connected, and he was involved with an engraving company that had been around for 25 or 30 years, but that really had slow growth, meaning they were just growing at the pace of the market at the time, maybe 3 to 5, 6% per year. So I came in and said, well, why don't we put a website together? Why don't we add some life to this and see if we can expand the customer base? That's where it started.
So from there, so it was his business essentially that you kind of said, I can really take this to the next level.
Right.
So did you kind of end up buying the business from him then? Or did you start a separate business that was?
Yeah, so I actually started a separate business because we were doing marketing, and we were basically building the websites and building the components. And then his business was actually helping with the fulfillment, specifically on the engraving side.
Okay.
And then soon that we added a number of other products. We ended up getting into larger full format banner printing, embossing, debossing, shirt printing, screen presses, embroidery. And then soon we noticed that we were just adding all types of promotional products for companies.
And this wasn't like a t-shirt shop down the street. You began to do this at scale. I mean, I would imagine pretty early in the business, you said, I don't want to just own a little engraving shop, right? Hang my shingle outside, hope people come by. You had this concept of taking it, using the internet, and to scale manufacturing.
Right. It didn't make sense at the time for me. I was young. Jenny and I were just married, my wife Jenny, and we felt like we needed to do something. If you go back a little bit, one of the key decisions in my life is I was headed to law school. So I had just finished my undergrad in political science. I was getting ready to go to law school, and I had to make a decision because I had also just started this small marketing company on the side. It was growing in the few months before law school. And so one of the key decisions in my life was to just pause and say, let me defer law school for a year. And instead of moving back to California, we were in Utah at the time, instead of moving back to California and starting law school in Sacramento, we decided to put off law school for a year. And at that point, I sort of had to, it was a sink or swim. You know, I jumped in with both feet and felt like if I was going to do this, we had to do it big enough that it made a deeper impact.
And what were the steps, or were there certain critical moments where you realized, like, let's not just do this kind of like you said, like, let's do it enough to where it makes sense, to where, I mean, I would imagine at some point during that process, you realize there's a really big market here, and I think we can own it.
Yeah,
right?
obviously you learn as you go. You're starting your business, you know, and the common phrase is people would call it pivoting, right? You jump in a certain path, you have to zigzag a little bit, you have to pivot. With us, we noticed that most of the companies that were out there, they were either an engraving company or a screen printing company or an embroidery company or a sign company. And what they had is they had specialized manufacturing, but they all served the same client. So we would find a client would actually have to go to sometimes 15 or 20 vendors to get everything taken care of for them. We came in, and when we created Namify was, why don't you give us your brand, give us your logo, give us your marketing plan, your agenda, everything else. We'll take care of the rest. The difference was there are a lot of people out there that do that, but they're brokers. And so the broker takes the job, and the broker takes the information, and then they turn around and source it out. What we did is we decided to manufacture it all.
Interesting. And I know some of your clients big Fortune 500 companies, right? A lot of them, to get to the scale that you guys have, which is, how many name tags per day did you tell me about? Between 50 to 70,000?
Yeah, on any given day, you've got 120 to 150,000 products going down the line.
Okay.
And a good chunk of those are name tags. And people ask, well, where do all the name tags go? Just walk into any retail shop, any shopping mall, any retail area, and you'll see all the name tags.
How cool. So then, as you mentioned, you went to the point to where these brands would come to you guys and say, okay, we have a big need, not just in this one segment,
right,
but take care of our printing and promotional products and really everything that puts our name on it.
Right.
Do that for us.
And that's what we said. So one of our slogans is we welcome the clients in and we say, your name here. Just bring it in, put your name here, and we'll take care of the rest.
Now, interesting, as we discussed earlier, obviously the Amazon world in which we live, there's a commoditization that's happening, not just with service-based industries like the one that I'm in, but also in manufacturing type industries, right? And at what point did you guys start to kind of feel the pressure of that world and realize that we need to maybe pivot again to maintain and grow market share?
Yeah, I mean, we had grown. We were experiencing triple-digit growth year over year. And then about 2010 or 2011, we sat down and said, hey, there's a lot of competition out here. Like basically anybody's opening up shop. They're importing from overseas. They're manufacturing faster. There are a lot of young guys and gals that are coming on the scene. So we started doing some initial research and looking at the trends. By the time larger companies were kind of pushing big box out of the way, we realized there were some larger players that were jumping in the e-commerce space. Those larger players in the e-commerce space started to chip away at our market just a little bit. So we had to up our game with customer loyalty and up the depth of relationships that we had. So at the time, I think we had 145 or 150,000 clients like in our database that we were servicing. And so you imagine the back end on that of how to keep that robust, how to keep the clients happy. So we actually sat down, formed a kind of a small elite team, and we started asking a lot of vital questions to our clients. And it was basically, what are you doing with your promotional gear? How's your promotional product working? And we found everybody understands the traditional model. You do it, I do it. We go to a trade show, we go to some seminar, we go to some event. People come by, we give them a stress ball, we give them a pen, we give out a free shirt. And the reality is that shirt, everybody has all these what we call paint shirts in their closet. So they got a shirt that's too small, it's too big, it's not the color, it's not the cut that they would like. And the pen works for a little bit, but then it doesn't fit their. Anyway, we sat down with these clients, and basically we collected about 2,500 points of information, and we narrowed them down into 30 or 40 groups, and then from those groups we identified 5 or 6 key pain points. And the reality is that when most companies are ordering their marketing gear, it's a crapshoot. They don't know what they don't know yet, so they just say, some companies will just continue on corporate tradition. Like, oh, we give out, 10,000 stress balls at the event. Or next year they give out, a different version of the stress ball. But they're just in that mindset where it's marketing and purchasing. They're missing a key component. So one of the things that we identified is that in order for companies to really survive and understand and be worth their weight is what we call it in a marketing world or in an engagement world, is we need to get the employees on board. You need every single member of the team on board. So at that point, we developed a solution where we built an online software platform, and the platform is really unique in that it's one of the first in its space, and it's truly a branding platform. And the platform exists to help collaborate between HR and IT, marketing, the employees, manufacturing, employees, remote employees, telecommuters, clients, vendors, to keep everybody unified around the brand. So in short, what the platform does is it solves 4 or 5 of these key pain points. And a couple scenarios that I think make people laugh, but they're very real. You have in any small business, usually the boss is the one that's in charge of making all the decisions. They decide, what are we giving out at the Christmas party, let's say. And so the boss works really hard, goes around, looks at different products. The boss may be a hunter. So they say, oh, a Carhartt jacket is what I would love. And so they go and they have an office full of, maybe
camo.
maybe camo or bright orange or something. And they get really excited about it, and they love it so much that they end up putting their logo on it. It's ABC Company on top of a big Carhartt jacket. So they go and they spend $150 a jacket. Well, then you go to and you find, some young guy who maybe grew up in a city, has some strong opinions about hunting. They live in a warm weather climate anyway. He never gets out in the cold weather. And the boss happily says, Justin, I got this jacket just for you. Thank you for being a faithful employee.
What is this?
And then you look at it, and the employee just kind of says, okay, thank you. Then they take it home, and this is where we got involved. What are they doing with it? We wanted honest feedback. So we started collecting thousands of points of anonymous feedback. And what we found is overwhelmingly, almost 90% of the time, the boss just gets it wrong. Because it creates what we call a negative touch point with the brand. So marketing is always trying to create positive touch points with the brand, but then in that one little arena, this is just one of our pain points, they end up getting it wrong. So we developed this solution where all of a sudden, you remove that awkward component. Because what happens 3 days later? Boss shows up at work in the Carhartt jacket, the employee doesn't. All of a sudden, there's a little bit of there's some animosity there. Employee shows up with it to just appease the boss. How does that person feel? The employee sort of feels like, I'm only wearing this because I have to. I'm stuck.
It's interesting. I've been studying this concept of creating a movement, and one of the things I've realized is that in order to create a movement where people really get behind your brand 100%, it's where your brand is consistent with this other brand,
right?
To the point to where by embracing this other brand, it really reinforces your own brand. And if wearing a Carhartt jacket in camo isn't your brand, you start to almost disconnect from,
Absolutely.
I don't really belong with these people,
Absolutely.
right? You start looking around for, who are my people? Because these guys are not my people, right?
Exactly. So now take that same concept to a company of maybe 1,000 employees. You have different departments, different offices, let's say,
and different parts of the country.
Different parts of the country.
Yeah.
So naturally, you're going to get different culture. Every manager is going to have their nuances. Every group of employees that gets together, obviously, all those interpersonal relationships are going to create the culture. So the challenge is then, how does a marketing team unify the culture around the brand?
When the people are so different.
Right? When the people are so different. So all we said was, here's what we're doing. Instead of giving people carte blanche and saying, get whatever you want for the brand, or you get a lot of offices where people say, I don't even wear my brand, because why would I wear something that they give away? They give away red t-shirts every year. They give away, blue bags that I'm never going to wear. They give away a backpack. I don't even go out and hike, whatever it is. So we just created the software platform that said, marketing can set the guidelines and guardrails and say, this is sort of the approved version of what we do. In a couple of clicks, you bring in your logo, you add sort of some of your styling, and then all of a sudden you've got a brand experience that has 148 products there. And then you turn that around and you send it out to the 1,000 employees, and each employee can go in, they just kind of choose their own brand. And what we found, interestingly enough, because a lot of people said, like, wasn't that just like you're just building a store and you're letting people just buy the brand? There were a couple things that happened. One is we asked companies to just pause and jump on our pilot and say, how about instead of just spending the $20,000 you're going to spend on promo gear, why don't you put that $20,000 in the hands of your employees? And what we found is there was this amazing connection and relationship. All of a sudden, the employees felt like, wait, I'm kind of trusted with this. They saw it as a perk or a benefit. Each employee would get $100 or $200 for the year to either spend on themselves or spend on a client or a friend. And then we kind of sat back and we watched. And as we watched the behavior in the native environment, we would see that some employees would use that credit to buy a backpack for their sister. But it would have the company logo on it. Some people would use it to buy, Christmas gifts for their parents. Some people would use it for themselves and just decorate their desks, their workspace, and then all of a sudden they were wearing the logo. So a couple of data points. 15% of any standard office right now that doesn't use our platform, about 15% of the employees are using company swag. Interesting. Or company promo on a regular basis. You can see it. And it's probably just a coffee mug or a flask on a desk, and maybe occasionally it's a t-shirt. But that jumped from 15% engagement to 60 plus. We're finding that most companies that jump on our platform will take that brand to the next level.
It really takes the price pressure out of it, because you look at the numbers from 15 to 60%. The question isn't about how cheap can you do it. The question is, what's the affected impact upon the money that we're spending, right?
Right. Yeah, you're getting value. And the other thing that we noticed that was interesting is, if I came to you, Justin, and I said, hey, Justin, I've got this $100 jacket that I'm going to give to you. Would you be willing to put in $40? And it's got your logo on it, and it's got the company gear on it. Most people, that creates sort of what we call a negative touch point. The person is kind of like, hey, that's a really nice jacket. This is a weird conversation that we're having, that you're trying to give me something nice, but asking me to pitch into it. Like, that doesn't work. But one of the byproducts that we found is, let's say, you put your logo out there, you put your gear store together, you jump on the platform, you get a brand new employee, and the employee, you give them $50 when they come on board with the company. They go in and they pick a couple of items that are unique to them. It may be a beanie because they jog early in the morning. It may be a running shirt because that's their
thing. That's their brand. Right?
That's their brand. So they relate to that. And then they show up to work, and all of a sudden they're in a beanie that's logoed and a shirt that's logoed, and then they're running around and representing the company.
Using it, right?
They're using it everywhere. But here's what we noticed is 25% of employees would actually take that $50 credit, and they would reach in their pocket and add another $20, and then they would buy the $70 item.
Yeah.
And it's a simple thing, but because there was choice, there was no pressure, it creates now a positive touch point with the brand. Not only that, what happens when you pay for something?
Yeah, you don't put it in the closet.
You don't.
Get paint on it.
No, you don't.
Purposely.
You actually take care of it.
Yeah.
So here's the other byproduct. Since you're involved heavily in social media, we found that organically, for every 100 employees that a company has, their logo was showing up 300 times more in a week organically on social media. Because you and I are going for a hike, and guess what? You're wearing logoed gear that wasn't given to you. You chose it. You helped design it. You helped participate.
It's something that you want, right?
Yeah. So we really have an employee-driven solution. HR companies or HR departments love it right now. We've been doing a lot of work in the HR space because they're trying to figure out how to onboard this younger generation. These college kids that come out and they're entering the workforce. They're becoming adults, and how do we get them on board? And so this platform helps substantially with the onboarding solution.
It's fascinating to see how to thrive in a commoditizing industry, right?
Right.
I think a lot of times it has to do with data, but it's more than just data. It's the insights that the data provides, right? And I see you doing that. And some of my listeners and people that tune into this are real estate agents who there's a massive impact right now on commoditizing what they do, right? Service-based industries.
Right.
And I think to some degree that the solutions can probably be similar, right? That you're gathering data and providing valuable insights that algorithms can't solve, right?
Right.
And almost not showing up as just being a manufacturer of real estate solutions, right? Which is kind of the old model, which is I open doors, I sign contracts, right? Kind of very not fiduciary, but more functionary.
It's transactional, sure.
Yeah. But taking more a data and insight approach that elevates your value proposition, which is how I think service-based industries thrive amidst commoditization, right? Is that they bring insights that helps the client in new ways that the former maybe manufacturers, the commoditizers weren't thinking of, right?
Well said. And I think that's what our platform's called Axomo. It's AXOMO. And that platform, the Axomo platform, does that. It brings the insights into larger companies that are spending $25,000 or more on different swag. Even companies, we have some that'll spend $500,000 to $2 million a year. They want the insights of where that's going. Right? And really they're putting it back in the hands of the people. We're creating that relationship. Instead of it being about the product, it's about building that relationship. And it's interesting you mentioned the real estate world because we have several real estate clients that are on this platform that are using it to grow their own brand.
Interesting.
And instead of giving out a branded good, they're giving out sort of cards and gift cards and discounts to have people go to their own brand and experience the brand and say, oh, this is a really cool Camelback. I need one of these. And it just happens to have the real estate agency logo on there. So they start to get more organic listings. All of a sudden, people are seeing it in a more organic environment.
We'll put in the show notes a link for those that are interested, whether you be in real estate or any other industry, as to how you can kind of adopt this kind of higher level branding approach to your company. We'll be sure and give people access to that. Let's talk a little bit about as you've scaled your business, you've been able to bring in some very talented people, right? That have really helped take Namify to the next level, and also given you some freedom and ability to invest in other companies. How many other companies are you currently invested in, would you say, now?
So I've got a small piece in maybe 30 to 35 different companies. Okay. It sounds larger than it is, or it sounds more complex than it is. But these are small components where I take either strategy role or an advisement role. But back to your point with the Namify team, the Namify team does an excellent job. We have a very unique group of individuals. When you look at them on paper, they're not going to look like your typical team, and that's by design because we have some amazing personalities. We have personalities across the whole spectrum. We have experience across the whole spectrum. It's not like you just have a same group of 15 MBAs in there that are all kind of thinking the same. We don't have this. We have a lot of healthy conflict, a lot of healthy conversation, dialogue, debate, and it's what's made the company great.
It's great.
And it's all centered around the client, what the client needs.
Very cool. So because of your kind of fusion with taking data and knowledge and even the internet, right, and bring it into the manufacturing world, you created a really unique maybe knowledge base and skill set that now a lot of the companies you invest in, maybe are manufacturing companies, where you're taking these similar insights and helping guide these younger companies to have a similar, hopefully, end game and product that you guys have been able to have, right?
Yeah, well, with manufacturing in the U.S., it's gone through a series of changes, and it's sort of an iterative process where we outsourced everything. As the 80s moved along, we started outsourcing everything. But small businesses, what we would call the traditional American mom and pop shop, maybe they're in the plumbing space or plastics or metal. They have 15 employees. They do $1 million or $2 million a year in revenue. A lot of these companies, they worked hard, and they raised kids, and they sent their kids off to do other things. So you've got, I think the SBA reported that you'll have 11,000 businesses this year where the owners are at retirement age.
Interesting.
And there's no succession strategy.
Wow, 11,000.
And so, and what's interesting is, what does that person do? They can't sell the business because nobody really wants the business, because you have to get in and you have to have some technical skill set to get in. If we're making trinkets or we're making particular parts or pieces, you have to have it. It's almost an art, to get into some of these old school manufacturing processes. Yeah. So, so one of the things that I like to do is go in and see if there's a way that we can help, sort of salvage the business that somebody's built for 40 years. Because a lot of these people are just shutting their doors. Yeah. They're saying, well, we're done. Like, I worked it for a long time, and we're done. And we're coming in and saying, like, wait, we think there's deeper value here. Like, maybe we can try something. So we go in and sort of talk with them and see if there's a way that we can add a layer of automation, a layer of technology, maybe keep 1 or 2 or 3 of the technician side of things, but really automate the rest of the process. So that, because a typical small business owner has to do sales, they do their own marketing, they do their own, they're the advertising, they're running around, they're doing the back end production, the shipping, everything. If we can automate some of those tools, then maybe we can keep that business alive. The other thing is, a lot of people want to do software. They come out of college, they say, I want to develop an app. It's a web-based app. I want to build a website. I want to have an online business. And everybody wants to do it because it's easy. And when you start touching and putting your hands on tangible goods, whether it's wood, metal, plastic, most people get a little bit, they're a little bit unsure. They're just not used to it. They're like, how about I just sit behind the computer and program? Well,
most high schools got rid of their wood shop.
Right.
In lieu of creating
an auto shop and everything.
Exactly, for creating a computer lab, right?
Right. So some tangibles. I mean, obviously, apparel is a tangible. The desk, the building space that we're in. These are tangible items.
Can't code these things. Right?
Yeah, a lot of young entrepreneurs are scared of this space. So one of the things that we're trying to do is, when we do find a student that's interested in this space, that's where I jump in and say, let's figure something out. Yeah. Like you can do this, and it can be lucrative, and you can have a lot of fun, and you can help a ton of people.
Right. And really probably far surpass what maybe existing and previous competitors in the marketplace have done, with, again, fusing in the internet, right?
Exactly. Imagine some of the pain points we have. It's sort of like everybody has a pain point of maybe calling the plumber, because it seems like it's a hassle. But imagine a young entrepreneur coming in and automating the plumbing system, and it's building the platform that says, I need a plumber. There's one within, or there's 16 of them, within 12 minutes, and I can highlight each one, and it has a price on each one. I can just pick one, and they're there at the house 6 minutes later, solving the problem, diagnosing, they're out the door, and I'm done. Instead of the old, well, maybe I can charge you 3x to have an emergency, or maybe I can get to it next Tuesday. Right. There's just a lot of old school ways of thinking that worked really well in the 80s and 90s. But this generation, we want it a little bit faster. Yeah.
And we have the data and resources to be able to do it, right?
We do. And so we're going that direction. That's not going to stop.
Yeah. Well, it's really fun to see. Now, I know with, again, if you look at kind of the purpose of the podcast, right? It's help people think bigger, do more, and have greater impact. And with some of your free time, you've, with really the growth of your business, you've been able to reinvest in small businesses. We talked a little bit about the joy that you see in helping other people win, right? Other businesses win, and that fuels you, right? I know you also said, that you lead, what could be called a youth ministry of 1,000 kids, and you're heavily involved in BYU and other places where you're helping kind of extend philanthropic type efforts. What impact has that had upon your family, right?
Well, so first, I mean, I have 6 children,
Mm-hmm.
and so my 6 kids are in that youth ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just talk briefly about that. A lot of kids these days, and this is 3, 4, 5-year-olds all the way up to 18, 19-year-olds in those critical moments. A lot of them are asking themselves questions, and they may be simple questions to us as adults, but they're really impactful and meaningful. And I find that we as adults actually ask ourselves the same questions. So the average 13-year-old is asking themselves, do I have worth? Am I worthwhile?
Mm-hmm.
An average 17 or 18-year-old, as they're leaving high school, they're saying, am I going to make it? Am I going to figure life out? Am I going to find that life partner? Am I going to build a family later on? What will my life look like? Where will I live? With the rising real estate costs, they're asking questions of how can I afford this kind of life? And they're asking themselves these things internally. And instead of externally and creating dialogue, they're sort of being quiet about it. So our generation, the kids they'll Snapchat each other and send each other do streaks and send each other pictures and memes and everything else, and they're it's a lot of fun and there's a lot of entertainment. But when you really get to the heart of the youth, they have the same questions that we have as adults, which is am I good enough as a dad?
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing the right thing? Am I taking care of my spouse? Am I providing enough for my children? What am I doing to give back? And so part of the joy that I find is helping with this youth ministry,
Mm-hmm.
is helping all of these young people sort of get in and ask themselves some of those questions, and how to rely on faith-based principles to recognize that yes, you do have worth. Yes, you do have value. Yes, you can do amazing things in your life.
Because I think one thing that we've learned is the peril at times of that social media world, because you're asking yourself, do I have worth? And then you open up and see highlight reels of people that have maybe been filtered to look
and that's exactly what they are. And we know that intellectually,
yeah,
but we still get emotionally drawn in.
Yeah, it impacts us, our own self-worth.
It does, and that's why we need to be careful with what we, how we surround ourselves. What kind of friends we surround ourselves with, what kind of media impact we have in our life. Going back to your earlier point of the joy that I find as I watch somebody move from point A to point B, and they overcome certain obstacles, that brings me a great level of joy and happiness. And I spent 2 years as an LDS missionary in Peru, and so I go down to Peru on a regular basis and teach these same principles of entrepreneurship and finding pain points in your business and solving those pain points, and how to price the market right so you can still make money but still focus on the client, and take care of yourself. And anyway, so it's a lot of fun to be able to give back.
Yeah. And I think you're an inspiration for me and a lot of others to be able to really create a great business, right? That then gives you the ability to contribute, right? Sometimes we think of giving back in ways of just writing a check and or going and building houses, but whatever it is that your strength is, right? Whatever you get good at in your business, there's people all around the world that need that help, right? Whether it be like you, what you've done, in the manufacturing space, and someone else's talents and gifts to the world and what they create in their career may be totally different than that. But how cool to be able to position themselves to then go help with that skill base,
right,
that skill set, and go help other people thrive and overcome that. Like, I think it's a great model of you don't necessarily just devote yourself entirely to out being a missionary. You can do that as well, right? But just teaching the skill sets and principles that you learn in business can bless a lot of people's lives, right?
Well, I think isn't that what we're all about?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we're going to get old, and isn't it about the wisdom that's been passed on to us, what we've done with it, and then turning around? The fact that my father-in-law connected me, and he was the first person in my adult life to sort of open my eyes to an alternate path. Stepping out of law school, he didn't come in and say you shouldn't go to law school. What he did is he had a few impactful moments on my life where I watched him have a little more freedom and flexibility in his schedule, but I also watched him stress a little bit more about things. So I knew that jumping into the world that I was going into, I was going to have higher stress, but perhaps higher reward at the same time. And that's what we're here for. I mean, you give back. I mean, you're doing the same thing. You gain a little bit of knowledge, you turn around. And what's interesting in the process is the more I teach, I feel like even though these guys might benefit from it, or at least I hope they are, but I feel like I come out, learning so much more.
Right.
Every time I finish a class, finish a course, teaching something, lecturing somewhere, I end up meeting some amazing people along the way.
You're causing me to tip my cards here a little bit. Is that the Think Bigger Mastermind was a bit of a selfish project at first. It's just I really wanted to have conversations with really great people and learn because I'm a student on that. And then I realized that I was getting a lot of comments and feedback like, hey, this is helping. Your videos are helping, right? Yeah. Which fuels it again. And
absolutely.
It definitely, when you teach, you really learn it at such a deeper level, right? When you've done, and then you can teach what you've done, it's a perpetual cycle of improvement and gratification, really, because you start lifting others.
It is. And as you think bigger, and sometimes it's more than thinking bigger. It may be more linear, it may be broader, it may have a different depth, but it's expanding, right? Mm-hmm. It's growing and expanding your mind and expanding your vision. I have a lot of conversations with people. One of the most common questions that people say when you build a business or you're perceived as having success is, hey, what's the secret to success? Or what are some key components that led to your success? I don't know that I'm that different than anybody else that's out there. But somehow I'm wired to think, and I would attribute this to my faith and to my my knowledge of where I believe I am in the world, as far as being a child of God, being a Christian, having faith-based principles. That I believe we can do great things, and I believe that life is just an opportunity to go out, and it's a big lab. It's a place to go out and experiment and play, and you may blow some things up or make some mistakes, and some people are so afraid to fail and take a couple of years recovering, and I think we're all going to fall. You're a 3-year-old kid, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall. Yeah. You just get back up again. Yeah. It's simple. But as adults, we fall, and then suddenly there's this fear of embarrassment. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I lost my shirt on this deal. I've lost, on so many ventures, along the way. Yeah. And it's interesting because I believe in this concept of you fail quickly and you fail cheap. So if you can do that, then it's fine. And so a lot of people don't see the failures because I failed so fast and so cheap that I just got up and looked around and said, well, I got to keep going on this. Yeah. But you fall all the time. And part of thinking bigger and you putting this on is to help people to I think it's to just give them that courage to say, I'm no different from this guy. Mm-hmm. And you're not really. I mean, you're no different than everybody that's been in the podcast and everybody that talks about these things. The principles, you know them intellectually. Mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of, I got to get up tomorrow morning, and am I going to follow my same habits, or will I make that adjustment? Try something a little bit more, and I think that's where our total enjoyment comes. Is pushing ourselves to that next level.
Growth and progress.
Yeah, that's
what we're here for.
We all want to create inside, and everybody likes to create. Everybody sits there, when you're laying there at night, and you're about to fall asleep, you're wishing something. Oh man, I wish I could. Oh, I wish we could find a better, Or some people have turned that off, and so maybe. Your podcast, hopefully it helps people to turn that back on. Yeah. Again.
Spark something
like maybe
I'm here to grow, I'm here to progress.
Yeah, I'm here to do something.
What's next?
Yeah. And ultimately I find, this as you talk to grandparents and those that have come before us, they always sit around. I love asking them questions. Every time I run into somebody that's, has lived a long and fruitful life, I ask them a lot of questions like, what did you do different with your kids? What do you wish you would have done differently? And it's always the same thing. It's always the things that we're talking about. So our generation seems to get caught up. We're trying to put food on the table and we scramble and that's great and that's good. But I like how you've highlighted some of these core values and principles of the think bigger. Think a little bit bigger, have some gains, give back to other people.
Ultimately, I think we want to have lives of impact, right? We want to have our lives mattered, that we became who we're supposed to become, and we helped who we're supposed to help. And I think hopefully that this has been an inspiration to you to hear Bryan's story. I know it has been for me. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, you bet.
I know there's a lot of pulls and demands on your time, and it's just an honor to have you here. And I've loved just going deeper. So thank you, and please share this episode with other people. This is a guy that you can learn from in all areas of life. Someone that I totally look up to and admire. So anyway, thanks again, man. Appreciate it,
Justin.
You bet. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Think Bigger Mastermind with me, your host, Justin Stoddard. Now, here's how you can show me some digital love in return. Number 1, subscribe to the show. Number 2, give me a review. And number 3, go think bigger.